Hey, it's Parshat Tetzaveh, and it's a little difficult for me to figure out what to say each time these parshas that are talking about the Beit Hamikdash and the vessels and the altars and the menorah. Now they're talking today about the menorah and about the animal offerings and about the clothing for the Kohanim. Anyway, but as I'm thinking like what to say, obviously I'm going to find what to say because it's not really me. It's Nesiva Shalom. But he also said in last week's parsha when we talked about the building of the Beit Hamikdash or the commandment to build the Beit Hamikdash, he said that there was a very interesting midrash in Tanchuma in Yecheskel when it's talking about there's a prophet, the prophet Yecheskel, who took the Jewish people basically out of the lands of Israel into the first exile after the destruction of the temple. And there's a midrash there that says that Hashem told Yecheskel, this prophet who was just dealing with such a terrible tragedy that happened to the Jewish people, they were all out in exile, that he told Yecheskel to study the learning, to actually learn with the Jewish people how to build the next Beit HaMikdash. This was 400 years after the Beit HaMikdash was built originally. So these people who were going out into exile didn't actually know about the Beit HaMikdash and how to build it, because they weren't the generation that built it. And Yecheskel, and Hashem says, just teach them the building of the Beit HaMikdash, how to create like the different measurements and how to build it, And so Yecheskel said, hold on, what? They can't build the Beit HaMikdash now. We're in exile, and they're still reeling from the tragedy of losing the Beit HaMikdash. Why? How can you tell us to study these parshas about learning about how to build the vessels of the Beit HaMikdash? It's amazing what Hashem says. Well, first Yecheskel says to Hashem, Anu netunim bagola, we're in exile. Let us wait a little bit. Haniach lahem. Wait, let them rest a little bit. Let them sit here and get settled in exile. Till they come back to Israel. And then we can tell them about how to build the Beit HaMikdash. So Hashem says to Yecheskel, Bishvil shebanai netunim bagola yehe binyan beiti batel? Because the Jewish people are in exile, the existence of the Beit HaMikdash should be canceled out, meaning there shouldn't be a building of a Beit HaMikdash just because you guys are in exile? No. Gdola kriyata batorah kibinyana. If you learn about building the Beit HaMikdash, it's as if you're building the Beit HaMikdash. And that is considered for me, says Hashem, as if you are actually building the Beit HaMikdash. And it just kind of like connected for me to the idea that, it's like a manifestation of it. Like I always talk about, if you keep saying a certain thing over and over again, it will actually happen. And it's sort of like Hashem is giving him this hint, or Yecheskel, he's telling Yecheskel, tell the Jewish people, I know you're in exile, I know you're in a terrible situation, but you learn about building the Beit HaMikdash, get excited about it, enthusiastic about it, as if it's happening right away, now. And that, for me, not only is as if you get reward, as if you built the Beit HaMikdash, but it'll actually make it happen quicker, because it'll create within you an expectation that it should happen. And sure enough, after 70 years, they went back to Israel. And I know it sounds like 70 years is a long time, but in the end of the day, they went back and they needed to know these laws of how to build the Beit HaMikdash. So it occurred to me that it's very similar to what's happening these days. And I just heard a mother of one of the hostages, and she said, she was talking about it, her name is Idit, and she's the mother of Alon. So if you want to dive in for one more hostage, I just added him to the list. For some reason, I didn't have him on my list. Alon ben Idit. And Alon was with a bunch of the hostages that were already released. So he was able, like all the guys that were released recently, it was Eliyah, and I think Eli Sharabi, and a few people who were with him were able to come back and tell this mom, Idit, about her son, So you can imagine like what an amazing experience that was. and she was speaking on the radio, and she was talking to this interviewer who was interviewing her. And of course, it's like a very left-wing kind of a station, a radio station, and but do you think that there's really any chance that they're going to get out? And how close do you think we are to, signing a deal with Hamas? And I understand that the government doesn't want to sign a deal, blah, 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 blah. So she said, first of all, of course, the only option is that they're coming back. He is coming back. I'm going to see my son soon. And I know that I have no control over what happens to my son. I'm in a different country. Unfortunately, this tragedy happened. My son is a hostage, but I can create the environment to which my son will come back. That's the only control I have. I can work on myself. I can work on my family, on creating a happy family for him to come back to. And she said, number two, I don't call him a chatuf. I don't call him a hostage or a kidnapped person, because that keeps him in that state of being a hostage, being a kidnapped person. Don't call him a kidnapped person. Call him a shav, a person who is returning. It's amazing. It's almost like a Baal Tshuva. Call him a Baal Tshuva. Call him a returnee to the country. And that's what she calls him. She says, I call all the kidnapped people, I don't call them kidnapped, I call them returnees. The returnees will come back. And I heard her say a couple of times during the conversation, when the returnees get back to Israel, I will be able to at least give him a family, a healthy family, a family that's not depressed, and a healthy, happy environment, and so on. And it occurred to me that this is what she's doing. And I see that all the mothers, the other mothers that we talked to, that we had a chance to talk to one of the other mothers, Omer Winkert's mother, last year in 2024, February 2024. We had a chance to talk to one of the moms of, her name is Neva, and thank God he was released a couple of weeks ago. But last year, she said, I have no doubt that he will come back. And I keep talking about what we will do when he comes back. And she talked about the barbecue and the food that they're going to make him. And she says, I smell the barbecue. I have it in literally all my senses are being filled with what is going to be. The image in my mind is constantly going through my mind on what will be when he comes back. So that was just an unbelievable lesson that I wanted to share with you. That's number one. And so that's really what we talk about when we talk about the reading and the learning about the building of the Beit HaMikdash. It's more than just a hope that someday we'll understand what it's like when the Beit HaMikdash will become established once again, when we will have to build it. It's not only a hope and a yearning. I mean, it is. But the fact that we're learning it with enthusiasm, it's as if it's happening now, and it makes that reality that much more close and that much stronger. Okay? So amen to that. That's number one. Number two, Netivat Shalom talks about the menorah. And he says something very interesting happened with the menorah. First of all, we know that the menorah, I don't know if you know this, but it was very hard, very difficult for Moshe to build the menorah. He didn't know how to do it. He was like freaking out. He could not figure out what to do, how to build the menorah. So he asked Hashem, what do? I don't know how to do it. And so Hashem finally kind of like created the menorah for Moshe. He told him, just throw the gold into the fire, and out came the menorah. So it was kind of like a miracle. The whole menorah was a miracle. And also a very interesting thing happened with the menorah is that the menorah is considered Aaron, because Aaron was the high priest. It was like Aaron's mitzvah. Aaron's special role was to light the menorah every day. And apparently, there's a midrash that explains that Aaron was upset because he didn't bring an offering in the Beit HaMikdash, to the Beit HaMikdash, along with all the other presidents of the tribes. He was the only one that didn't bring an offering, and he was like sad about it. And Hashem saw that he was sad about it, and he said, don't worry, the korbanot, the offerings, are only in the Beit HaMikdash as long as the Beit HaMikdash exists. But as soon as the Beit HaMikdash is destroyed, there are no more offerings. So their role is over once the Beit HaMikdash is destroyed, whereas your light, your menorah, exists forever. So as Nesivat Shalom, hold on, then the menorah also does not exist forever. As long as the Beit HaMikdash exists, we have the menorah, and we have the light from the menorah, and we have the special role of Aaron to light the menorah. But once the Beit HaMikdash is destroyed, same story with the menorah. We also don't light the menorah. I don't see anybody lighting menorah. So different midrashim talk about it. They say, first of all, that it could be talking about the light of Hanukkah that we do light, because that is in a certain commemoration of the menorah in the temple. But Netivot Shalom says also a different thing. He says it's true that the menorah itself in its physical form didn't quite exist anymore once the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed, although it was hidden away, and it will be back in use once we do rebuild the Beit HaMikdash soon in our days. But he says that it was such a spiritual thing, because what happened really at the beginning of creation, Hashem created the world in 6 days, and the first thing he created on the first day was Vayehi Or, light and darkness, right? He separated the light and the darkness. And we are used to thinking that that is the light. Okay, there was dark, and then Hashem created the light, Vayehi Or. But we also know that on the 4th day, we had the sun and the moon and the stars and all the luminaries, which actually created light and dark, okay? So what happened to that original light? Wasn't it light already? So what are those luminaries doing? Aren't they lighting up the world? But it's light already from that first light. So apparently, according to the Midrash, Hashem knew that he wanted to have this light. First of all, let's put that light out of here, out into the world. And that light is a spiritual light. It's the light of Hashem. It's the light of clarity, of understanding, of really seeing Hashem. Now, of course, we can't quite see Hashem, because if you see Hashem in full flesh, so to speak, first of all, it's not possible, because Hashem is infinite and we are finite. But if we're completely overwhelmed if we see too much of the light of Hashem. So Hashem put that light into the world on the first day, but then hid it away. And he hid it in a place specifically that only very righteous people will be able to see. Or also on Shabbat, we have an ability to have that clarity, to have that light. So no matter what, that light is always going to be accessible to us. It's an eternal light. And that is the light that Hashem allowed Aaron to light in the Beit HaMikdash, on the menorah. And that's why the menorah had to be kind of like a spiritual entity, something that Moshe couldn't figure out how to do it. Because how do I create something physical that can contain such a spiritual light? What even is that light? So it had to be sort of a joint doing between Hashem and Moshe. It was like a joint creation of the menorah. Hashem really created it because it was supposed to be a receptacle for this incredible light of Hashem, this vision, this ability to see Hashem. And that's what existed in the Beit HaMikdash. And so to an extent, that exists always, eternally, because we really can never live. We can't exist without that light. That light is the light of understanding, of clarity, of seeing Hashem. And I think these days we see Hashem in certain instances in Eretz Yisrael a lot more clearly than outside of Eretz Yisrael. But in general, as we get closer to the time, I think, of Mashiach and of rebuilding the Beit HaMikdash, and especially in Israel, we do start to see Hashem more clearly. We just see that we can bring things into reality much more clearly. Like I don't know, I was just telling a friend of mine that I was at a really crazy situation with my family a few weeks ago. Actually, I was talking about it on the video also last week about speaking to a rabbi about it. And things just resolved. They really resolved. And I really feel like it came about because I was constantly saying, and I was really, really believing it. I was really believing it because it's true, that everything will come about more, that everything will become clear and everything will be positive and there will be a good outcome to this situation. I know it. I know it. And actually, my friend was telling me today, Debbie was telling me today, that she heard another mom of a hostage these moms, they're amazing. Another mom of a hostage named Tirza, who is the mom of Avinatan ben Ditsa Tirza, she said that she always says to herself, in the end, it will be good. And if it's not good yet, it's not the end yet. Okay, so that's a really powerful statement. And if we can just see that, that is the light that Hashem is showing us day by day. We just keep seeing little snippets of Hashem's light, and that light is eternal. So in that way, Aaron's light and Aaron's role is eternal. It exists forever. And I think the more we tap into that light, the more we're able to see it, the more we're able to bring it into reality, and the more we will manifest not only good, hopefully which very sweet good, and a very sweet end to all our really difficult challenges that we're experiencing these days, but will also bring about a complete redemption, a complete return of all our hostages in health, and in health of body and spirit, and the coming of Mashiach and the building of the Beit HaMikdash. Have a good Shabbos.